Hello guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. Thank you to everyone who took the time to subscribe to my YouTube channel, and to those who have not subscribed, please I encourage you all to subscribe to my YouTube channel. So my name is Oluwatosin Akimbinu, and I just get to come on board and share my views, my ideas of what's going around, what we can talk about, what we can share ideas about, and see how we can help each other. So welcome to my channel, Facts, Issues, and Realities. This segment is the generation of this time. And I had said when I started the segment that we will be bringing other people on board so we could share ideas, have head-to-head discussions about their opinions on the subject or area of concentration at that time. So today, our area of concentration is, what does the future hold for this youth? So that's, what does the future hold for this youth? And again, I had two amazing guests that came on board with a wealth of experience, a wealth of ideas and knowledge that I can never take for granted. Our first guest today is the Director of Studies at Efsheba Schools. She's the CEO, Parenting International, the President of the Jewels for Life Ministry, a seasoned teacher in the seminary. She supports adolescents in navigating through development issues. She holds periodic guidance and counseling sections with young parents, and she's very passionate about raising children for excellence in life. Please join me in welcoming Mrs. Atinuke Oyenuga. Second guest today was a lecturer at FUTA and the University of Lagos, where he was also a member of the University Senate. He has been a facilitator at the prestigious Lagos Business School. He holds both the Global Professional in Human Resources and Management Professional. He is also an associate of the Chartered Institute of Personnel Management of Nigeria. He is a member of the National Council of CIPM. He is a certified trainer of supervisors and leaders. He currently works with a multinational organization with a career spanning the public affairs, strategy, and learning development function. Please join me in welcoming Mr. Abayomi Faweyimi. Thank you both for coming on the show today, and I just encourage everyone to sit back, relax, and enjoy how these two brought up their wealth of experience to analyze things concerning the area of concentration. What does the future hold for this youth? Today, we're still on the same topic, the generation of this time, but our area of concentration is what does the future hold for them? What does the future hold for them? And before I go on, I just wanted to introduce the both of you to yourself. I am getting your biography that will be uploaded. So I'm not going to read that out here. So Mr. Abayomi, if I'm right, that's Abayomi Faweyimi. So I know that you are an HR professional and an educational consultant. And I know you have your interest in policy development and leadership. I know you were also a university lecturer before you went on to work for Chevron and before relocating to Canada. And I see a lot of talks you do, especially on The Views and some other TV programs. And I just see your zeal and passion, especially for the Nigerian education, which I don't know where it's going right now, but we're just hoping for the best with them. And that's why I needed you, on board to help me, enlighten us about what is going on into this generation. And even though we parents, we tend to work towards getting the best for our children, how do these even children see what the future, holds for them? So again, I'm going to welcome you on board and thank you so much for joining. Then our other guest today is Mrs. Oyenuga. I actually call her Mommy Oyenuga. I think I've known her all my life. She's an amazing mama, not just to me, but to a lot of, my group ages from when we were younger, youthful ages. And these are people that we look up to. And I can tell you that a lot of us today that are actually doing what I'm doing is because we had people like her beside us. She's a director of education, and I know she runs a school, the Efsheba Primary School. And I purposely got you on board today, Ma, because the school you run, your activities, the things you do is actually the starting point. That you basically are the foundation of what these children come out to be. So most times when a child is born, they're groomed to a certain age, and your school, the sector where you run, is basically where they bring them first when they start saying dada or mama. And that's why I needed you on board, because the both of you actually are basically like the foundations of the future of these children. So again, I want to say thank you so much for taking out, your time out of your busy schedule to be here. And so that's introduction for the both of you. So I guess you know each other later. So going forward, my first question, I just have about 3 questions, and the three questions are going to open up and be able to touch on every aspect of, the topic. What does the future hold for this generation? So my first basic question is, what are the steps to help them see this future? And these are the children. And just like I had said, we have these children, they get to a point, they start talking, and then we want to enroll them into schools. We as parents are trying, believing that when we enroll them into schools, that's the first primary assignment towards us working progressively for their future, their success. But we've done our own basic duty. Now, for you and every other people out there, my question is, what are the steps to help these children see the future? So I'm going to start with you, Mommy Oyenugama.
Okay. Thank you very much. You are welcome, Mr. Fawemi. I'm so happy to see you. Sorry about the lockdown. We are moving all around in Nigeria here. And I want to commend Mrs. Akibinu. Thank you so much, Tosin, for coming on board the parenting platform. And I believe that there's not going to be an end to where God is going to use you mightily for this ministry that you have stepped into.
Amen.
To start with, when you are saying this generation, and you are talking about children between the age of 6 and 18, 20, thereabouts, professionally, I will say the United Nations has its own definition for what we call youths. So we need to, because we are going to be talking to some informed persons, we need to delineate this very carefully so that we can carry everybody along. We have the children, well, that starts with the infants, and we move into the prebescents, that is shortly before they start the puberty, the menopause, the going into menstruation, and the deep voice for the boys, and the rest of it until they get into their teenage years, which starts from 13 and ends about 17, 18. So the United Nations starts the classification of youth from actually the age of 18. Some say from the age of 15. However, the youth does not have a cap. Some countries cap theirs at 24, some at 30, some at 35. So I would want to stay with your mindset, having said you are looking at ages 6 to 18, and how the educators or the adults, the government, significant adults are supporting this group of people to look into the future. I think the future actually begins from today. The because the future that you're talking about begins with today. And with the digital media, it's very easy to let children and youths, I believe children and youths know that there is an after now. There is an after now. And we are not talking eschatology here. We are talking about because they watch movies, films that talks about adventures, going into the afterworld and so on and so forth. So they actually are better informed about something beyond yesterday. So now, having established that, I'd like to now look at the future as the layman sees it. That is when that 6-year-old turns into 10 and the 18-year-old turns into 30, 40. That is a few years after where they are. I believe that is what we are talking about the future. The future that we are clamoring for the children is a place or an environment we look at what he or she, who he or she can become that will now impact upon the environment wholesomely, and not just what the environment is going to do or bless him or her with, but what he or she is going to do for the environment and the community and the world. So that is the difference between the future of yesteryears and the future that starts from today. So what we in the education field are actually doing is a robust curriculum that takes the child away from his or her immediate environment and looks at the significance of individuals using models that are local, models that are global, to let them know that they have a significance, they have a reference in the world. So the curriculum is so robust that it helps to do that. But beyond the school curriculum that we're talking about, preparing the child for the future actually is domestic. It's a domestic fundamental responsibility, and it starts with how the ability of the parents to socialize the child. Socialization of the child means that you are integrating the child into the system. You are enlightening and training the child to be able to survive in the system and to be able to know that the system does not depend solely on him or her. However, the system also depends on him or her. So the socialization would involve things like demonstrating these characteristics at the domestic level. A lot of people believe that it's the school that will prepare the child for the future. No, it's the home is a domestic thing. The school just enhances and takes it beyond where the parents can through the expanded and robust curriculum. So socialization at home is critical to preparation of the child for the future. Because if a child that is not well socialized at home will find it very difficult to even integrate into the curriculum that the school has already gotten ready for him or her. So let me just stop here for Mr. Fawemi to come in. I will continue from wherever he stops.
Yes, sir.
So what I have been able to register, what I hope I've been able to register is that the youth is a classification that we need to delineate because of its universality and the broad place where we think this program might be listened to. The categorization of human beings into toddlers, infants, prepubescent, teenagers, and then we get into the demography of who you call the youth. And also letting us know that preparing the children for a life beyond the age that they are currently, the world that they are going to step into actually begins from the home where they grow from before they get into the external. So the socialization of that child in the home is actually what is going to prepare for the enhancement that is going to happen, the honing of skills that is going to happen in the school and in the external community from the domestic.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ma. I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And I really like the way you broke down the definitions from, being infant, toddlers, all through the youth, and I understand that perfectly well. But, like I had said, unfortunately, because of the way the system, the world has tuned everything to be, most times, because I deal with youth here, and when they say youth here, they give me from the ages of 6, and I've questioned as well. But it's, to me, it's basically because of what is going on right now, how they've been tuned to the progress of the world. Things have changed, and so the idea of them being children has actually been stolen. So they are all classified as the youths. Thank you so much, Ma. I really like that. So yes, Mr. Fawemi, I would also like you to chip in one or two things about that question, which is, what are the steps to help this youth see the future?
Okay, I think, and thanks for the question, and thanks for the response, Ma. I really appreciate it. I think the first thing is for us to ask, who is the person that's supposed to help the youth to see that future? I mean, is it the teacher? Is it the parents? Is it all members of the society? I think that's where we should start from. I mean, because if we think, because there are some parents, for example, who believe that responsibility lies with the teacher, and therefore they have outsourced that role to the teacher. At the same time, there's also some teachers that feel there is a partnership. There are some people that have outsourced the role to their grandparents, right? So while some people have actually outsourced the role to the media, they want news media to create the vision of the future. So some have outsourced it to science. So I think the first step is to define who that person is. My own suggestion is that I think it's everybody, from the parents to the teacher to the religious leaders to the members of the family and everybody in society. But I think at the primary responsibility lies with the parents to play this role. So that for me looks like the first step. I think the second step is for that parents themselves, and by extension, the other teachers, to also have an idea of what that future looks like. You can't prepare somebody for what you don't know. I mean, so that parents must have an idea. We have had parents in times past that have told their children things that the children got to realize it wasn't true. I mean, it's just the reality of it. I mean, so we as parents and educators and people that are in this space need to prepare ourselves to understand what is that future. And one of the challenges of this future we're trying to describe is the fact that maybe all of us don't even know what is this future, right? Beyond the future of that, when we die, for those of us that are religious and who follow what the teaching of the Bible is, that says after death there is judgment, there is that assurance. But the future of this world today is difficult to really define. Last year, January, I was invited by news media in Nigeria for us to come and talk about 2020. I mean, they brought many of us as experts to come and talk about it. We talked about it. We talked about all the risk that will likely happen in 2020. One of the foremost top 3 consulting firms releases a top 10 risk every year. When they released the risk in January, they listed the risk. Nobody mentioned health as a risk. By March, they had to rewrite the reports. And so when we even talk about that future, we're not even sure what's going to happen by the end of this month. I mean, so you mentioned the lockdown. 3 days ago, nobody was aware of a lockdown that's going to happen in Ontario. So my question is, and I think the US military has come out quickly to understand it. It says the future is VUCA. They said V for volatile, U for certain, C for can't remember, and A is ambiguous. So we don't know. I mean, we can't even. Nobody's ever saw health as a risk at any point in time, and see the way Corona. So part of what we as parents and everybody needs to understand that the future we're preparing the children for, we don't really know it. And therefore, we need to tap into some advanced intelligence to know what it should look like. But at the same time, to let children know, in spite of the changes, some things will never change. Part of it is that character, the value of character will not change. Whether character is going to be defined by A or B, but the importance of character, the importance of ethics will never change. And therefore, part of what we need to sell to the children is as things are changing, some things will remain firm. Now, the definition of good character could be different, right? But character will always win. We need to be sure of that. The other thing is that we need to also let them know in that future we're talking about, there are consequences. Life is about sowing and reaping. If you don't sow, you will not reap. Like I told somebody who said you will not take vaccine. I said you are sowing something, you will reap it. Those that are taking vaccine, they're also sowing something, you will reap it. So part of what we need to let these children know about the future is that even though we don't have a full glance of what the future is, there are rules that govern the world. One of which is sowing and reaping. If you don't go to school, you will not likely be schooled. It's simple. If you write rubbish on Twitter, somebody will read it and could get you into trouble. If you are a policeman and you stand on somebody's neck and you assume that nobody knows or saw you, somebody
going on.
So character and consequences is the reality. Maybe another thing we need to let them know is the impact of how technology will change things and how technology can actually amplify the consequences, for example. Maybe the other thing is to let those children know that, one, they have a potential to be anything they want to be in that future. And it's very important for us to give them that courage, give them that motivation, that anything they want to be in that future we're talking about, they can be it. I mean, so getting back to my example of the soldier, policeman that wickedly knelt on somebody's neck and killed the person in the process, the video we saw about that whole incident, the whole kernel of that case, is built not on the recording of a policeman, it's built on the recording of a teenager. I mean, how the whole world, one of the most significant events of 2020 was that incident and the resulting Black Lives Matter issue. The recording was not done by a photographer, it was not done by a video man, it was not done by the media, it was done by a teenager who was just walking. Time and chance. So part of what we need to let those children understand is that they can change the world. That girl that did that recording literally changed the world just because she has a smartphone and because of her presence. So we need to let them understand that you are not as small as you think you are. You can make a difference. I mean, they brought a child, I think they said the child is 8 or 9 years old, to the jury to come and address the jury. I mean, that's a powerful thing. And part of what we need, and that's where I'm going to stop, is that we need to equip these children, these youths, with that possibility thinking that I can make a difference, I can change the world. My article, my videos, my communication, my education can make the world a better place. I think if you start with that, it will help us.
Yeah. Thank you so much, sir. You've actually helped to touch even through the next question that I was going to ask. And the question, because yes, we as parents, will try and help these children, give them the best, because as African parents, we always believe the first step is education. But again, coming to this part of the world, I've come to realize that yes, I can send my son to school because I want him to be a doctor, I want him to be an engineer, this. However, what about him himself and his influence, his peers' influence from the school or from the activities I'm sending him to? Does he come in contact with? Does he get, to be with? How? how does this influence him to actually see the steps that we parents, we teachers, community leaders, organizations, villages help, to help them secure a good future. So my question is, how do them seeing the future help them through this journey? Because we've been able to tell them, if you go to school, you learn, you study, then you're going to be this, you're going to be that. But to them, how do them perceiving that, okay, if I really go to school, and be this and study this, how does that help them in their journey? So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Abayomi, on that. Then I'll go to Mommy Oyenuga.
Okay, thanks for that question. I think one of the things we also need to let children understand is that schooling is one of the ways they will get educated.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a sense we put too much emphasis on schooling, but we forget the wider dimension of what makes for education. So, for example, a child who is brilliant in school but cannot wash the dishes is well schooled but is not well educated. A child who eats 3 square meals but can't cook any meal, not even boil egg, that child is well schooled but is not well educated. A child who does not respect people, who does not respect nature, who does not care about younger people, who does not care about the other gender, who does not care about the disabled, maybe well schooled but not well educated. So part of what we need to let children know is your schooling is part of the gamut of what makes you educated. But again, the challenge is also, the misalignment between schooling and profession is all over the world. I mean, for those of us who came from Africa, there's a sense in which the gap is wider. But I mean, I read one World Economic Forum report that said that, I'm trying to remember the exact stat, but excess of 60% of the professions that 5-year-olds will do when they become adults have not yet been created. So today now somebody says my job is a digital media assistant or whatever. When I was in school, I only knew lawyer, doctor, engineer, accountant, banker, things like that. But today, there are all manner of things. I mean, somebody says I'm a psychologist. I mean, then I knew people read psychology when they didn't get admission to study law. I mean, I didn't know they actually make a living from it. Then somebody now says I'm not a psychologist, I'm actually a therapist. And you're like, which one is that again? And then somebody comes and say, I'm not a psychologist, I'm not a therapist, I'm a counselor. So you realize that the schooling system is not responding fast enough to those changes. I mean, so I know, for example, you're a lawyer, but I get to see these days that people now start to define the kind of lawyer they are. I saw somebody in this Chavinstra case who said she's a accidental death lawyer or something like that. I mean, so if I want to be an accidental death lawyer, why are they wasting my time asking me to study land law and law of agency? I mean, that's what I want to do, and that's what I want to do. Now, some people could argue it's better so part of what we need to do as parents is to let the children understand that whatever they learn in the school is part of the tools they will need to use in that future. One, ensure that they don't get stranded by what they studied. Very important. So if I studied law, I don't have to be a lawyer. If I studied medicine, I don't have to be a doctor. If I studied media, I don't have to do that. That's one. Number two, help them also understand that this world celebrates intersections. So I am a lawyer. I love music. You will earn more combining the two than staying in either of them. That's what I've come to say. I'm an engineer. I like sports. You may likely do better when you combine both. I'm a poet, but I am an accountant. There's a likelihood that it's when you combine both, you get the fusion you want, that you want at the end of the day. So we need to let those children understand that because you studied a course, it's just a platform for you to use to engage society. You are not stranded by it. You are not limited by it. But it's something you can start with. So here you are. This is what you learned in school. As you go on, you start to realize the various dimensions of it. So let me round up on this. I was telling someone, so I have a science background, who was saying, this is what I study and I have to do. And I said, if you actually remember science, that when we were in the first year of science in high school, the names you hear in chemistry are the same names you hear in physics. So you hear of Boyle's law, you hear of Newton's law of motion, you read about his work in chemistry, you read about his works in physics. So I asked, I said, so how come are these two guys in both? He said he doesn't. I said, it's because when they were growing up, we didn't put them in those boxes. They were just scientists. But now we have now put everybody in box. So this one is a biologist. In fact, we have even worse in the biology that should be one. We are broken into microbiology, then there is biology. I saw somebody that said he's studying food and industrial biology. Now, so we're shrinking knowledge, but we know the fact of our knowledge. Knowledge is vast, is also interconnected. There is law in science, there is science in engineering, there is engineering in music, and all of those things. So part of it, we need to let those children understand those intersections. Yeah. How, for example, you have a case in court and you need a lawyer to defend a doctor, or you want to produce good music, you have a very good, beautiful voice, but your voice is not coming out. Who is going to help you is not a voice trainer. He's an engineer, a sound engineer that will tell you the acoustics of your room is doing well. I'm a good photographer, but my pictures don't come out well. Who is going to help you is a light engineer who understands how to do angles of light. So we need to let children understand those intersections and be prepared for it as they go into that future, using where they started from, which is where they studied, to use to engage and start to work at those intersections.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Ma. So to you, Ma, Mama Enuga, so the same question. Can you hear me? I think you're muted.
Thank you, Mr. Fawemi. Very intellectual submission. I agree with you completely that university education, or whichever form of education a child, whatever form of schooling a child goes through, does not fully educate the child. Schooling does not fully educate the child. Education is life learning. And so coming to Tosi's question, how do these children seeing the future, how does it help them? One thing I want us to know is that a basic ingredient of life is selflessness. If you have the characteristic of being selfless, thinking beyond yourself, thinking for the good of the entirety of the community, the world, you are really ready for any form of future that you find yourself. Nobody can determine the future that anyone will step into. I am very happy with the analysis of the COVID year 2020. So many things were put on hold. Nobody prepared for it. Nobody. Even the sages, the seers, and all the rest of it, nobody. However, we discovered that in this calamitous situation, we found people who, even at the risk of their lives, were still at the forefront, looking for how to save lives, looking for how to make sure that this thing does not spread, looking for the vaccine that we are taking all over today. Some people who went back to the laboratories, these people that we're talking about, that we're identifying. For instance, here, and I know it's also it stems from abroad, we find a lot of food deliveries, home food deliveries, warm home food deliveries. Businesses that would have closed down completely, they are surviving because they think beyond themselves. So anybody who goes through any formal schooling, that formal schooling is just to discipline you. They get up at a particular time, go for lectures, come back, write exams, defend projects, and all the rest. All this, any child every child should be encouraged to go through a form of schooling to a form of level, whichever level, secondary, high school, college, and tertiary, whatever the child is able to. It gives some form of discipline. However, the most important thing that is basic, that must have been inputted into a child, is from that infancy, 5, 6 year old that you are talking about. A child seeing beyond himself and herself. A child, a youth who does not think of him or herself alone. When you are selfless, you will always be looking at better ways of doing things, improved ways of delivery. You will be thinking of how things can benefit beyond yourself and your immediate family. Yourself and your immediate family will even be the last because you are thinking globally. So a globally inclined child is gotten from the fundamental before age 7. I know some children, they get it along as they move on in life, but that 0 to 7 is very critical. And we need to please pay attention to it as parents, as teachers, as guardians, as wherever the child may find him or herself. A child that has the character of selflessness is ready for any future that may come before him or her. I want to use Corrie ten Boom as an example. I'm sure two of you here and a lot of people that will be watching would have heard about that lady. Yes, she was a Christian missionary, and I'm sure we have parallels like that in similar ones like that, even in other faiths. Because she fundamentally within her had been taught that life is precious. Life is precious. Life must be preserved. People should not just die because somebody feels they should die. That child has imbibed that. It didn't start one day. It didn't start 2 days. She had seen people around. That's the life the people around her live. And do you know, by the time she had the opportunity and her family had the opportunity to save people that would have been killed during the annihilation of the Jews, they saved a lot of people because of that fundamental selflessness. It's the selflessness that created the future for people like Mother Teresa. It's the selflessness that turned Singapore to what Singapore is today. It's the selflessness that turned Singapore to what Singapore is today. It just took somebody who said, no, an end must come to corruption. The riches of this land should be able to take care of this land. The person didn't just wake up one day to think that. It's the selflessness that had been built into that person. So I believe that any future that a child has ahead of him, whether predictable or unpredictable, once the child has a good character, like Mr. Pawaini mentioned earlier, and what do we call this good character? We can say some of it is gratitude. Children should be taught gratitude, forgiveness, ability to forgive, sharing. You have a small thing, find some children, they find it difficult to pass because they have never seen such a situation. They have always seen, it's mine, it's mine, it's mine. When strong character is built in a child, and a child cannot build that character himself or herself. Yes, I know that the people that the proponents of the tabula rasa, that is John Locke and theorists like him, they said the child just comes into the world and that it is what the environment and the perspective, the experiences. Yes. And there are some people that believe that the child already has it inbuilt. Sometimes you wonder, children that have not even been taught, that haven't had the opportunity of anybody helping them with character building, they just have that character. We talk about that as nature, and we talk the other one as nurture. So I want to emphasize more on nurturing, on grooming, on supporting a child to develop good character. That good character will make the child to survive. It will make the child to survive any situation, because what the child will think of first is doing good, thinking of the other person, the consequences. And that is why we have a lot of religions and a lot of faith, and there's none that teaches immorality. All faith, all religions, they teach high morals. And I want to finish this example. You permit me, my the viewers, to use the example of Joseph. When Joseph got to the point where his conscience was going to, his life was going to be mortgaged by that woman, what he said that is recorded for us to read is, how will I do this thing and let God be angry with me? And that's what Mr. Farah said, consequences. Mm-hmm. Children should be taught to think of consequences. But when children grow amidst people who care less about consequences, who do not care about whose ox is God, no matter the kind of future the child comes into, the child will not be able to thrive. We all recollect that man, the one that brought Dubai into being. I think Al Khartoum, or his name, I can't remember clearly. He said his father looked at the barren land. He looked at that desert. That desert. Anyone who has gone to Israel before, you will see how irrigation has helped. It's because people are selfless. You talk about people who go into charities because people are selfless. You talk about people who say that an end must come to this. Twins must not die. The neurosurgeons, even those people who are not scientific, who do not go into the regular formal school, who do not have the opportunity of primary 1 to 6 or whatever. Once they have imbibed the culture of selflessness, any future they find themselves, they will find a way around it to make it a life worth living. So the future cannot be determined by anybody. The future may not be determined by anybody. But even whichever future anybody steps into, the character of the person determines what the future will become. Thank you.
Thank you so much. That's such a broad explanation, touching, into a lot of things. Really appreciate your analysis, Ma. So you all have actually touched even into the last question, but I'm still going to ask it anyway, because your wealth of experience and analysis is just mind-blowing. So we've talked about, what steps to be taken, be it from the education sector, from the community sector, even as parenting. We've also talked about how do this youth, how do they perceive the future, and how can the future help them? How are they able to help themselves through the journey? Despite the fact that we've listed the steps for them, how can the youth, help them through the journey? So we've basically spoken about them, how all these things can be done. Now I want us to focus on the parents, because, we parents, from my ongoing, you have your child in your head. You already know what you want your child to be. Like even from conception, you're already dreaming. My son just released a video, YouTube video, and he was saying, in his house, there are just 3. It was a subconscious thing to me. There are just 3 professions, and 4 professions. I think doctor, accountant, lawyer, and the last one is an idiot. So I'm like, that I called him and I'm like, what do you mean? He said, yes, if you're not a doctor, if you're not a this, then you're nobody. And I said, wow. Do you know that was the way I was also raised, from my father, like in my father's house, if you're not a doctor, if you're not a lawyer, then you're an idiot. What are you doing in this house? And subconsciously, I've pushed it to my children without knowing that is what I'm doing to them. So my question to you all, despite the fact that as we parent, this is what we want for our children. That's why we're sending them to school. We're putting them in clubs. We're putting them in all this. How can we be equipped to understand that it's not really what we plan for them for the future that actually may take shape? And not just understanding, but accepting and be able to even help the children themselves through that progress. So I'm going to start with you, Mr. Fawainisa.
Okay, very great question, and something to always think. And I'm going to watch your son's video so that I can understand the context where it's coming from. It's a challenge as a parent to be. I mean, so as a parent, you have a responsibility to plan. I mean, it's part of your role as a parent is to plan, and that includes planning the path you want the child to take. But at the same time, as a parent, part of the responsibility or part of what you need to do is to be flexible in spite of your plan. Flexibility from the point of view of the fact that when the child is not you, so you don't know whether your plan will suit the child. True. Flexibility from the point of view of the fact that for those of us that are people of faith, that your plan may not be God's plan for that child. And finally, flexibility from the point of view because that child himself has his own preference. We need to do that. I mean, I had my first struggle. Like I told you, I have a background in science. My wife is an engineer. It was expected that my children we also study science, right? I mean, I graduated with the first class. My wife graduated with second class upper in engineering. So everybody believed that our children would do science. And I had the first shock when I think my son was in GS3 and he said he was going to do the arts. I mean, it was something I couldn't imagine that. Where is the art in this house? I mean, there's nothing artistic here. But one of the things I've come to see is that as a parent, the ability to be flexible, it's a critical resource. So this is your plan, and it's not going to work. Of course, you provide all the resources. So when my son decided I was going to the arts, I told him, okay, I don't have a problem. This is what I expected, but we'll work with you. Whatever you need to do that, we ensure you are the best possible. I mean, and we had there were a lot of things I had to invest in because that was his own interest. So I think as a parent, yes, you've got to have a plan. And for those of us who come from background where we believe in prayer and God talking to people, it can help you too as a parent to know, okay, this is what this child should be. I mean, while that child is your child, but he came from somewhere. And the person that sent him to this world must have some plan about him. I mean, nobody makes a gadget without a purpose. So that child, the person that sent, if you believe somebody sends to the world, which I believe, that person must have a plan. So I think the parent must be able to clearly have that. That's what I think. Sometimes we parents we're not sensitive enough to be able to get this child's blueprint. So that's where we start to develop our own blueprint. So question you need to ask yourself is that this blueprint I'm developing, one, is it fair to the child? My child struggles with a subject. Is it fair for you to insist it should be that? My child doesn't like football. Is it fair for me to tell me he must become a footballer? I mean, so first question is the fairness test. The second test I think we should look at that plan is that, does it align with who my child is? I mean, so does he align with his giftings, with his interests, with his passion, with his love, with what he naturally gravitates to? It must be aligned with what's there. And then finally, are you constantly checking that your plan? Does it still make sense? I mean, because sometimes some of the parental plans don't make sense any longer. I mean, I'm giving the examples of lawyer because you are the one anchoring this program, and I know you're the one. So does it really make sense for anybody to insist that because I am a lawyer, my son must be a lawyer? I mean, you struggled as a lawyer. You didn't do so well as a lawyer. The only reason why you want your child to be a lawyer is because you want somebody to inherit your books. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I was talking to a parent who said, so after all of this now, so who is going to manage my firm? And I'm like, yeah, but this boy that I know, once you die, I said, this boy will take over your firm and sell everything one by one. He said, well, that will not be fair. I said, well, you'll be dead. I said, that's the only thing. I said, I know you will be annoyed wherever you are, but
Wherever
you are dead.
gone.
You are gone. I said, so you are not part of that conversation any longer. I said, this boy is going to sell everything in that firm. So we must ask ourselves, does it really make sense? I mean, at the end of the day. And finally, maybe the other thing I want to say is that I think it's a balance, right? So I give you an instance. So I practice HR today. There are some doors I can easily open in the HR world because I've been there. I sit on the National Council of the Professional Institute and all of that. So if my son wants to do HR, it's going to be easier for that boy because, I mean, he goes to do an interview. Most likely the person interviewed knows me and they say, are you social person? So it could be easier for the child. So it may be in the child's interest to want to go that way. But if he doesn't want to go that way, so let's assume my plan is for my child to be HR because I feel it will get leverage. My child decides wants to go and become an aeronautic engineer, right? Part of my role is to be able to let this child understand the extreme is going to. My own extreme on one side and his own extreme on one side. And then for me to help this child to understand, maybe there is a midpoint, right? Because sometimes some of those children too have, and that's the last point I want to talk about. Some of those children have goals that doesn't have goalposts. There is no goalpost that they will use to score the goal. I'm going to give you a life example of this. A child said he wanted to be a space engineer or something like that, and told the dad, and the dad bought the story. And I told the child that, hey, your child is not going to be a space engineer. He said, no, he's going to do everything. So they went around, they saw a school where the guy could study, I don't know whatever his name of the course. I said, you know what? You're setting this boy up, you're setting up an expectation that he's never going to meet. He said, why? I said, you know what? No country uses foreigners for their space program. When the Chinese are going to space, they carry Chinese people. When the Americans are going to space, they carry Americans. I said, if Nigeria is not going to space, except the spiritual space we use with witchcraft, who is going to employ your son to take him to space? I said, I don't get it. He said, well, God will do it. Okay, the child started the program, and then in year 2 or 3, the child needed to go for internship. Actually, the person told me that what he realized that in the son's class, there is nobody sponsored by parents. They are sponsored by NASA. They are sponsored by Canadian Research Agency. He said, so there is nobody sponsored by parents. Now, this child needed internship. So if NASA sponsored you, then NASA will let you go and intern in NASA. This boy was struggling to get a place to intern just because he's a Nigerian, and Nigeria does not have an effective space. But of course, we have a space agency. If he comes to intern in it, he will learn space. I mean, the space that we have, but not the world. So I was trying to tell the parent that you didn't do a good job helping this child understand this. Maybe what you could have done is let this boy go and study mechanical engineering. In the process, let him get an American citizenship or a Canadian citizenship or a Japanese citizenship, and let him go and do a space program. So he will still go to space, but you have used your own knowledge to order that step to say, okay, you are not yet there. You first need to become an engineer before you go and do this. But while you're engineering, I'm going to let you get a citizenship to make it easy. So that's part of our own role as parents to ensure that we are not extreme to our side, that is selfish, personal, one direction. But at the same time, too, we're not leaning to that child's side that is also not based on any fact, any data, or any reality.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, sir. I really appreciate your insight as well. So, Mommy Oyenuga, to you, ma. Final question.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mr. Fawemi. I have personal experience, and I started the college department of my school 4 years ago, and so I really can identify with that question. And when you have a child fantasizing, when a child is fantasizing, when a child is under peer influence, when a child is following a model,
drop the hairphone.
A model.
Drop it. Okay. Yeah.
When the child is under peer influence, when the child is fantasizing after a role model, when a child is in a school that does not take career counseling seriously, when parents are not informed, when they are not enlightened, when they are not exposed, you find a child trying to navigate his career and professional life on his own. However, before a child gets to the age where you say, I want to be a doctor, an accountant, or you must be a doctor or an accountant, if we have exposed and enlightened parents, it's going to be very, very easy to sit down and have a conversation. We'd say by the time a child is 13, 14, the parenting style should be a harmonious or democratic one, where we can sit down and talk about what we want to do, how we want to pursue what we want to do. Because sometimes it may not even be the career of the parents that they want the child to pursue. It may be something that is beyond, that is not affordable by the parents, whereas that child has the potential for it. When that, and this is where we must not, and I'm talking to parents now, parents like you, parents like me, young parents, we must not, because we cannot afford a particular career path for a child, dismiss that child's intention. Because if the child goes to if the child is in a good school, or the child is assisted by an informed parent, you can get that child to have scholarship. There are so many scholarship opportunities that is beyond the imagination of any human being, right there, waiting to be picked up if the child has a cognitive ability. It is not wrong for a parent to encourage a child to follow his or her path. There's nothing wrong in it. Absolutely nothing. However, once you know that the child does not have that inclination, does not have that tendency, you should stop forcing that child. If you are a medical doctor and your child is not good in sciences, in places like where I come from, with no apologies, I've heard of people, I don't know of them, but I've heard of people going to actually bribe and purchase, positions for their children to be able to go into particular courses. It is such a pity. So sad. You do not need to force a child. However, you can encourage a child, because some of these children that you think they know what they want to do, they actually don't know. They are still in the stage of fantasy. In education parlance, we call it fantasy. A child can fantasize about becoming anything, eventually become that thing. But it doesn't mean that everything that a child fantasizes becomes reality. I want to encourage parents like me, like you, that let's listen to the child. A child who wants to do something must have found out about the needed subjects, the needed certifications, must be able to look at it, and then you look at the scores from GS1 to GS3, from SS1 to, and in Canada, America, whatever that is equivalent to. Look at the strengths and the weaknesses of the child in the area of subject combination. It will actually let you know whether that child can go into that field or not. Then sometimes children don't want to even study towards the career or profession that we are in because we do not have relationships with such children. A child may just deliberately decide he doesn't want to be a lawyer and accountant because you, the parent, you are a lawyer and accountant, because you do not have a filial relationship. You don't have cordial relationship. Because of the way you run your business, the child may not even want to come near your career. So children say they don't want to follow parents' career is not only because they do not have the competence. Some may have the competence, but because of the personality, because of the relationship between the parent and the child may decide, I will not go into that. Then what do we do? Either we work, if we have a good counseling session, either we work on that child or restore the relationship between parent and child, or we let that child pick whatever it is he or she wants to be. It's painful when you have a thriving business and you don't have a successor. But what stops you from taking that business, if it is so thriving, into the stock market and get it out there? These are opportunities. These are areas that successful business owners must look at. And sometimes the child may not actually go into that career, into that profession, but end up coming to manage that business. I don't want to mention names, but there is a classical example. It's a medical outfit. The father, the husband and wife, they are both professors of medicine, and they have one of the largest hospitals with different at different locations in the place where I live in Lagos. They have children. None of their children studied medicine. Not a single one of the children. The children studied abroad. However, somehow along the line, the child that read management, read it to, I think, master's level, came back from England, went into hospital management for a year, a diploma or so, and is the one that is managing the outfit. They had about 6 outlets in Lagos. So that child is not a medical doctor. But because of the managerial skill that the child has, the child is able to manage that business. And on the other hand, we have another law firm that dad is an SAN, has 6 children. And do you know, the 6 children are lawyers, work in the chambers, all the 6 children. And I can say quite clearly that even from when the children were in primary school, they were always in the chambers. And I want to cite a dental outfit again. That is, I beg your pardon, and ophthalmologist clinic. There's an ophthalmology clinic in Lagos. I asked that doctor that, how come your 2 daughters are now, one is an ophthalmologist, one is an optometrist. How did you make it happen? He said, right from when I started having children, I knew I was going to start my own hospital, private hospital. And I know that I must get my children interested. So when they are bringing them from school, they come to the clinic. Right from SS2, during their vacation, they start working at the front desk. I pay them. One would work as the interest. The children developed that interest. It was a deliberate effort. I am saying this so that maybe young parents can learn from it as you are putting businesses together and you are getting them to come. But there are some others, they get children to come, and one way or the other, unfortunately, the child, the child passes on. What do you do about that? There are 6 different scenarios that we have, but my appeal to parents is, number 1, befriend your children. When they become teenagers, run the harmonious or the democratic parenting style. Number 2, send your children to schools where there are good counseling support, good pastoral counseling support. Pastoral, not in terms of Christianity, I'm talking about, guidance. There are some aptitude and interest skills tests that are administered on children that will help you to help the child without anybody. The child will see the parent also will see where is that child leading towards. And then you can also Google relevant professions and careers in the next 10 years. It will bring it up. And then you will be able to know where and what you can pick. My appeal to parents is take it easy, give the best to your child that you can afford. And when you cannot afford, know that out there are pools of funds available. Pools of funds. I hope say one day will bring the issue of scholarship into this her program. There are pools of funds. There are bursaries, pools of funds available for academic courses, which people can. So number one, plan with the child. Number two, chart a course with the child. Number three, befriend the child. Number four, ensure that the child goes to a good school where career counseling is key. We do this in Nigeria when the child is going from JS3 to SS1. And then the child is placed in the appropriate class by SS2, either art, commercial, or science. And now with the help of the digital world, you can, a day in a week, we sit and we look at careers and we look at how children can pursue it. But the university, this is my own, that I have been saying for over 20 years, just prepares a child for life. Dr. Roberts, who makes cakes, arguably the best wedding cakes in Nigeria today, read medicine. I will mention that name. There's another guy who read law. He said, just to please my mother, who will not let me rest. Or what he is doing for a living now is music and entertainment. Akiremi. We also have Panke Beshida, who went to the university to master's level. Is my surrogate daughter. What does she do now? She's in the beauty industry, and so on and so forth. University just prepares you for life. What you will do to earn a living and to live your life to the fullest is basically in the interest direction. But parents, make friends with your children if you are nurturing the hope of they following in your steps. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Oh my God, so much. That's too much wealth of experience. I want to appreciate you both. Thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with me and join me on this edition. I want to appreciate you all. And I'm hoping next time when I call you, you'll be quick to respond to me. Thank you so much, Ma. Thank you so much, sir. I appreciate your time. Until we see again next week. Oh, wow. So much that has been discussed today, and really an eye-opening and inspiring. I hope someone somewhere has learned a thing or two and has had an insight to what and how they can help their kids, their youth in this journey of their success. So many things we learned in this topic. What does the future hold for them, for the youth, for the children, for the generation of this time? I learned that they have to be more informed than now, because we're talking about the future, not just now, but for the future. So they have to even know more than what they know now so that they can be prepared for the future. I also learned that they should be able to impact the world. They shouldn't wait on what the world or what the society can do for them. They should be ready to impact the world. I also learned, that it would be advisable for schools, be it grade, be it elementary, be it high school, should have a robust curriculum, which means a curriculum outside the world of the regular educational system, so that you're able to take the children from the environment to another world of discovery. That's really huge. And I hope that, this kind of information goes out to a lot of school boards all over the world. I'm hoping some, might have started it. It's really a very important idea that yes, they do have the regular curriculum, but because of the way, things are progressing, it's advisable to have a robust curriculum that takes them out of their present environment into a world, a new world of discovery. So I also learned that it's important that these children are also able to demonstrate characteristics in domestic ways. So, which means don't just be a good child at school. Come home and be a good child. Be able to work, be able to do domestic chores at home, be able to help around, be able to volunteer even in the community or wherever you are. Demonstrating the characteristics in domestic ways. That was another great point that I learned. I also learned in both ways, parents, the child, the community, teachers, whatever, that it's so important to understand that there will be consequences if you do not sow the right seed. Like if you don't do the right thing at the right time, hey, there are going to be consequences. So that's another great point. I think, I'm hoping someone learns today that there will be consequences if you do not sow the right seeds at the right time. Also, another point that was passed through today regarding parents helping their children during this journey of success is that the parents should help the child plan. You help the child plan. You parent must be flexible as well. Flexible to changes, because you may intend that this child, you want this child to be a doctor, but as the child progresses as a child that would love sports, would love art. Be flexible to the change. Be able to say you don't necessarily have to be a doctor. You can also infuse a little bit of art in whatever you want to do, and be able to be flexible to help this child go in this journey of success. I also like that your plan, you must be sure that your plan is God's plan, which is very, very important, especially for the people of faith. Because yes, we always do want, our kids to do things. This is what we want. This is how we plan it for them. But be sure that that plan that you have for them is God's plan. I also learned that, your plan may not be that of your child, which is true, because every child born comes with a personality. A different personality. So you wanting your child to be a lawyer, that may not be the child's plan. So again, we have the primary responsibility of helping these children, planning with them, because they do not even understand, they don't know things yet. But as they grow and as you notice, this my child's personality may necessarily not be the lawyer type. I think he will be good in this field. Help them even see, because sometimes they may not even see. They want to do these things, but it's not them. So help them see, through this journey of success. Another point is help them in their own interest. Whatever they're interested in, help them, be supportive. See, and one of the speakers had said, the interest may really, really not be something favorable. However, let them understand that, listen, this is what you want to go, this is what you want to do. However, these are the consequences if you do that. These are the pros, these are the cons. Why don't you let us see it this way? That way you're supporting, you're having a communication with your child, helping them in their own interest. Also, be sensitive to your child. Be fair, right? Be fair. Listen. Be sensitive. Understand where they are coming from. Try to be the support rather than imposing on them. Understand that this career path that this child has chosen, or even you have chosen, does it align with your child? Does it align with the way your child is, or whom your child is? Your child is someone that is always singing. You hear your child having this very awesome voice, and then you say you want your child to become something very different. Does it align? with the personality of your child, with whom your child is. Another point, make sure whatever it is that you want your child to be or your child wants to be, make sure it aligns with whom your child is. The school only educates the child. The parents has the most responsibility in training this child. And the biggest point that I'm going to leave you all with today is constantly checking that your plan is still the right plan. Which means as things are progressing, your child is growing, things are changing, the environment is changing, things are taking new turns. Go back to the drawing board where you have your plan and keep checking. Is this still working? Is this objective still visible? Is it doable? Can this actually be achieved? Very, very important to always keep going back to check your plans. Thank you all so much to our two speakers who came on board and opened, our eyes to a lot of things. I really want to appreciate them for taking out time out of their busy schedule to join me and discuss issues, issues at heart, issues that matters a lot. So I encourage everybody, please subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until I see you guys again next week by God's grace. I want to encourage you all to please get your facts right, understand your issues, and focus on the reality. Take care. Bye-bye.